And Jude said here, building upon your most holy faith. And I got to thinking as I was studying and reading on faith a little bit there last night. This came to me, and hope it helps you, hope it encourages you tonight. But you might say, we hear about faith all the time, and I don't know that I've given the definition of faith and today, and I've told what other people did through faith. But I think the good question here is when he says, building on your most holy faith is, Keith, how do I do that? How do I build on my most holy faith? And this is, there's many ways to do that, to increase your faith. Jesus said, they asked Jesus to, Lord, increase our faith. He said, well, if you got faith the grain of a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, be removed and cast into the sea. Jesus is saying that if you got just a little bit of faith, I mean, if you fully believe something, you can do it. Jesus said, when you pray, if you believe, you have what you ask for, you've got it. So believing's a hard thing to do sometimes, isn't it? And that's why we need to build up our faith, which is a part of believing, fully trusting in the Lord. But I think, Bobby, to build on our faith one way, and there might be more ways, but I think one way is we've got to fully realize who we are. You got to fully realize who you are. And I think there's common questions that goes through people's minds a lot of times, because we, as human beings, I run into people a lot like this. And don't get mad at me tonight. I have to be honest. Heather knows this about me. I've never felt unworthy after I've got saved, and I really didn't feel too unworthy before I got saved. I guess I was a little bit proud-hearted, Keith. See, you got to overcome a lot of pride, don't you, get saved? The Lord can save you when you got a lot of pride. But I've never felt like I was and I say this, I try to say it in a humble way, Bob, but I've never felt like I was a scum of the earth or a bad person, or even though I was a sinner, I never felt like I was lower than everybody else. But there are people out there today that feel unworthy. I know, I've talked to them. And you have to tell them, Bobby, who they are, what they are. Once you get saved, who you are, and what Christ thinks of you, and how much He loves you. But I think that enemy, the old devil, he wants us to live in doubt, in fear, in frustration. But here's some questions that we're going to try to get into the message. I think everyone frequently will ask themselves when they're praying, maybe, is there anything that is too big that I shouldn't? We know God can do anything. But should I really even ask God for this? Am I being selfish when I ask God to heal me? Am I being selfish when I ask for a miracle? Am I being selfish? Or do I have the right, maybe, to ask Christ to do something amazing, something miraculous, something extraordinary? I'm nobody. Really? That's not what Jesus said. There was a woman one time, Bob, that had an infirmity. It don't come straight out and tell what the infirmity was, but it said she was bowled over in Luke. Let me look at this, and then you can look it up and read it for yourself. But in Luke chapter, if I can find my own, I can't even read your own notes, man. That's pitiful. But Luke chapter 13, I believe it is. Man, I can't read my own notes. I'm not kidding you guys. But if you can't find it, Luke chapter 13, come back and ask me, and I'll tell you here in just a little bit. But I think it's Luke chapter 13. But anyway, there was a woman that had an infirmity, a spirit of infirmity, Jesus said, for 18 years, bowed over like this. She couldn't raise up. And she came to Jesus. And Jesus touched the woman and said, be healed. And the Bible said that she raised right up, Keith, and began to glorify God. She walked this way for 18 years, Bobby, and Jesus just healed her right like that. And there was people in the crowd, religious people in the crowd, that because it was a Sunday, it was or Saturday back then, right. And that's still the Sabbath day. But you know that, I think. We celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. That's why we come on Sunday. But Saturday is a Sabbath day. They wanted to murmur and complain. You can't preach nothing anymore. I've seen it on, I don't know if I've seen it on any of the videos here, but Heather used to record them all the time. Lucinda too. And the little thumbs up things on Facebook and the little hearts, and then you get the little mean faces. I've literally been preaching and watched the live part of it and see a little mean face come up. I'm like, what did I say? You can't preach nothing today without somebody disagreeing with you or somebody not. And maybe you didn't even mean something the way that you said it. But these rulers, man, it's a Sabbath day. You got 6 days in a week. Why couldn't you do that some other day? And Jesus said, well, which one of you wouldn't have pulled your ox out of a ditch if it fell in there on the Sabbath day? He said, and this woman, being a child of a daughter of Abraham, shouldn't she be healed on the Sabbath day? What was that saying about this woman? The same thing it's saying about you tonight once you get saved. Do I have a right, Keith, to ask God for amazing things? No, I'm not talking about being selfish and something that I want just because I'm going to grab a hold of it. And James said, don't even pray that way. You're just praying in the wind that you can consume it upon your lust. But something you need, or something even if it's something you don't need, but you say, Lord, if you give me this, I'll take it and use it to glorify you. Right? I don't think it's too much to pray for a bigger church. I really don't. God, the more people we got, the more we can glorify you today. But Jesus said that this woman was a daughter of Abraham. Now, what was Abraham? The Bible said Abraham was the father of faith. She was a daughter of faith. That gave her the right to be healed. That gives us the right to come before the throne of God. You're a son or a daughter of faith tonight in Jesus Christ. Abraham was the father of the promise. He wasn't the heir of the promise. The heirs came later on. You understand that? He was the father of the promise, the father of faith. You guys are heirs of faith tonight. You're the heirs of the promises of God tonight. Abraham was the father of promise. And all the promises that God gave that just wasn't specifically to the nation of God, but it's in the Bible that goes to everybody, Bobby. Every one of those promises today are you. And the New Testament Bible tells you as an heir of God and a joint heir with Jesus Christ that you have the right tonight to come boldly to the throne of grace. We're going to bring this part out here in a minute. Do I have a right to pray bold, not arrogant prayers? Right. Not say, God, give this to me or else I'll quit serving you. You might as well quit serving him because he's not going to hear that kind of prayer today. When it says come boldly, it doesn't mean mean-spirited or arrogantly. It just means confidently, I think, is what it's saying. Come confidently knowing that when you come to pray, you know why some people don't get their prayers answered? And this is my opinion now. I think this is why some don't get their prayers answered. Because they come and they pray today. They come back and they pray again tomorrow. They come back the next day. Lord, I ain't seeing nothing happening. They pray again. They pray again. They pray again. Jesus said, when you pray and you believe, you know you got what you're asked for. Next time come in and say, Lord, I ain't seeing nothing, but thank you. I know you're on the way. I know you're moving. I know that mountain's moving. When Joshua went to the Red Sea, I believe it is, or the Jordan River rather, it didn't part immediately like the Red Sea did. It stopped way upriver, Bobby, and it took a process. The priests had to go out into the water for it to start parting. They had to wait just a little while for that promise to come. And today, we don't get everything we ask for immediately today. But do you realize Romans 8:28 tells the heirs of promise, the heirs of faith, which is you and I today, we're children of Abraham. We're daughters and sons of Abraham, just like her. Abraham wasn't saved under the law. The law was not given till Moses came. So Abraham, the faith started before the law was even given. So we're saved by the same faith that Abraham was saved by. Well, how's that? Abraham believed God. Well, I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, and you believe God, because he said that's my son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear him today. But you're children of the living God tonight. You're heirs of the promise of God. And Romans 8:28 says, Angie, and I probably said this here before, but I quoted it wrong. Just left out 3 little words, Keith, for a long time preaching. And one day the Lord said, you're missing the biggest part of this scripture. I used to quote it all the time and say, all things work together for good to them that love God and are called according to His purpose. That's true. I didn't take any words out of context, but I left out the first three. It says, and we know. We know this, Keith. We know everything in life. All things are working for your good. Why? Because you're a son or a daughter of faith. You have a right to approach the throne of God. You have a right to pray great big prayers. You have a right to pray something just for yourself if you need it, for healing, for God to move something, God to change something. Now, what's something too big for me to pray for that I shouldn't even dare to ask God for? That I would feel like would be me being, I just gave you the word and now I can't even think of it. My mind's gone, buddy. Be selfish of me to pray for this. Let's see what some prayed in the Bible and see if you think, well, man, I would never pray for nothing that big, so I'm good. Joshua looked up and said, Lord, stop time. Now, ain't what he said, Kelly? Yeah, it is. Yeah. God, stop time. He said, God, don't let the sun go down or the moon to come up. So in English, stop time, God, for a whole day. And God did. Mm-hmm. God stopped time. Hezekiah, when the prophet said, God will give you a sign, what do you want to see? He said, well, I want this. It's no great thing for the sundial to go forward. It goes forward by itself as time goes on. So let God turn it back. What was he saying? God turned time back for me. Mm-hmm. And God turned the sundial back 15 degrees. And Hannah, for you women tonight, look how bold her prayer was. And I don't know if you've ever looked at this before. Because she was just praying for a child. She wasn't just praying for a child. She couldn't have a child. But instead of coming like maybe I would, or maybe you would, I got to use me. I don't know how you'd come, but Taylor couldn't have a child for the first 10 or 15 years of our marriage. And I thought, man, we really, once after 20 years, we probably wouldn't want one. But I mean, we went the first 4 or 5 years and didn't have a kid, and we're still young at that time. And man, well, we really want a child. Bob, at that time, I'd probably be willing to come and say, well, Lord, I just don't care what it is. As long as it's healthy. Just give me a child. Girl, boy, whatever, don't matter. And it doesn't matter. Girls and boys are both good. I mean, you know what I'm saying. But this woman had something in her mind. I want my husband's bloodline to continue on. So she came to God and said, give me a man child. Give me a male child. Not just give me anything, Lord. This is what I want. And she cried out. She was serious. She wasn't demanding, but Lord, give this to me. And you know, she said, I'll give him back to you. I'll give him back to you. And God heard and answered her prayer today. Why? She was a daughter of faith. Joshua was a son of faith. Hezekiah was a son of faith. This woman in the New Testament was a daughter of faith, a daughter of the promises. And the church today, we're heirs of the promises of God. When